Well, I hope everybody had a great holiday weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. We are now at December 1st. That's the meteorological start of winter. And my briefing definitely has a winter-like theme as we go into the next week with some really cold air in quite a few areas. Let's get started in today's weather briefing. Well, right now we have this big area of high pressure here, and that is sinking down to the south and eventually off to the east. And that's going to be ushering in some really cold air. Now, right now you can see some of that air. Look at the upper Midwest. Temperatures near zero this morning. And wind chills 10 to 15 degrees below zero. So boy, we have really shifted. It doesn't seem like it was that many weeks ago we were talking about some mild weather, prolonged fall. We are in winter in many spots. Okay, so as far as the departure from normal goes, areas in yellow are still sort of lingering pretty close to normal, but we're getting that colder air below normal up in the upper Midwest and the northern Rockies. So as far as precipitation goes last week, there wasn't a whole lot. Many areas were fairly quiet. The Pacific Northwest had some enhanced rain and snow at higher elevations, and the eastern U.S. and the Northeast had some rain and some snow as well. So where was the snow? Well, higher elevations, lots of lake effect snow, parts of the Northeast U.S., New England, and here's a little streak of snow over the weekend that moved across parts of the Midwest. Speaking of snow, the Great Lakes, remember that post I put out about a week or so ago about how warm the water was on the Great Lakes? Well, you get the cold air moving over that warm water, you get instability, it enhances the snow on the lee side, and it was several feet of snow, and that pattern looks like it's going to continue. So what do you need? You need the warmer water, the cold Arctic air flowing over it, and then as it flows over it, you get the lake effect snow downstream. Okay, so let's take a look at the big picture here. The North American weather regime that we're in, very strong pattern of an Alaska ridge. That's our Alaska ridge, and what that does is it pushes the jet stream up to the north here, and then it sinks down to the south, and in that area of blue, colder than normal, and under the ridge, warmer than normal. That looks like that's going to continue for the next week to 10 days before we break out of that. So what we have here is there's our ridge, our Alaska ridge, and what it's doing is it's pushing that jet stream to the north, digging it down to the south, and again, where we have that ridge here, that's pushing the warm air to the north. Under that low, it's digging down to the south. And by the end of the week, Friday, what we have here is this ridge sort of tries to push over here. This tries to move off, but this looks like a secondary front. So we're probably going to warm up towards the middle of the week over the central U.S. and then a reinforcing cold front with some colder air. Now, what I want to point out here when we look at this is it looks like the colder air over the area, say, let's draw a line right through here. Anything east of that line, it looks like we could have some below normal temperatures now for maybe the next 10 to 15 days. West of that line, it looks like we could have above normal temperatures over the next 15 days. Now remember this here, this looks like the pattern breaks towards maybe, 10th or 11th of the month, more or less. And at that time, that is when it looks like we could return to some near to above normal. But you can still see here in the eastern U.S. still some hints of below normal. So this pattern is going to be a bit persistent. And if you're in the central and east, cool or cold. If you're in the west, you're going to have some moderating air and warmer temperatures. Now let's take a look at Minneapolis. We're getting high temperatures in the 20s. And what we have here is it sort of warms up. This is when the ridge starts to build. Then we have that secondary cold front. By Thursday, the highs are only 16. Normal high temperature is 25 or so. So we are in the time of year that Minneapolis is typically very cold. Okay, let's talk about precipitation here. And again, most of the nation looks like it's going to be fairly quiet this week. Pacific Northwest, some rain and snow, some lake effect snow, and here along the North Gulf Coast. And other than that, overall pretty quiet. I don't see any major systems. Now what we have here as far as snow, this is that secondary cold front. Remember that secondary cold front I talked to you about? Most likely associated with this right here. And what that's going to do is bring a narrow clipper type system with some light snow in this band right here. And then we have a continuation of the lake effect snow. So that's where I think the snow will be this week. Now I wanted to show you another big picture graphic. This is sort of one big picture graphic that I use to give me some idea of what the sort of the big picture. Here's another one. This is the 30-day percent of normal. And you know, I make a lot of long-term outlooks, and boy, I tell you, I don't remember it being this challenging. This is with this La Nina. This is supposed to be wet, and this is supposed to be dry. It's the opposite. So anyway, this looks like very dry conditions over the west coast, and that's an area that's been really wet. So this is going to be dry. Lots of dry weather in the east, and that's associated with that cold Arctic air. And overall, it looks like a pretty quiet period in December right now as far as precipitation goes. Okay, and finally, let's take a look at 6 to 10 and 8 to 14. You can still see that dividing line right here. And east and west, cold and mild. And here's our precipitation for week 2. Anyway, that's this week's briefing, and I hope everybody has safe travels as they start the new week, the month of December. Take care.